Hyundai and Kia out of the Apple Car agreements again? For real this time? Plus, what kind of equipment are you going to need for streaming? All this and more on the Tech Summit Podcast, episode 27. I'm Chris.
I'm Francisco.
And of course, if you all are listening in on YouTube, all of that information is going to be here at the bottom of the video.
Indeed. And if you're on any of the other podcasting platforms, you should find the rest of our social media down in the description, at least mine for the time being, until Christopher updates it. But that's it for that.
Yes. And we have a couple of subjects today.
We do.
But before we do,
yes,
I would like to just have a quick moment of silence for all of the bag holders of the GameStop stock and how that all turned out.
I'm a little bit hurt at what happened, but you live and you learn.
It's really unfortunate that the market got manipulated the way that it did to ensure that we all got kind of squashed. And of course, you have a lot of people out there who are still very much like, the squeezes yet to happen, the squeezes yet to happen. In my opinion, the squeezes happened and we missed it.
It did.
Simple as that. It's very unfortunate. And as of yesterday, I officially sold my GameStop stock.
Really?
I had 25.44 shares. I sold 25. So I technically still have like a little under half a share. But I did, in fact, sell all of my stuff for a total loss of $60.
Okay.
Now, a lot of people are going to look at it as, well, at least you only lost 60. There's a lot of people out there who put in their entire life savings buying at the peak and then losing all of that. You know, you only lost $60. Yes, but then 10 minutes after I sold, it went further up, and I could have broken even profited $10. So I'm pretty upset about that. And just in general, I was at one point up $9,000, and that could have been a really nice jump start in the future to the year.
Yeah.
You know, a huge change, and I'm just extremely upset that essentially the market got manipulated like that, and there's nothing we can really do about it except just sit there dumbfounded, just kind of like, oh, well, you know, I'm very upset.
Yeah. I mean, this is why I personally am not a fan of gambling like that. And this time I did fall for it because it was so exciting. And even I thought that it was going to last a while longer. So when I bought, it was around 279. Now it's down to like
150. No, it's 53.
Oh, well, at least in my case, like the value of my
okay.
stock is like $120, I think.
Well, you bought two?
No, I only bought one.
Oh.
Yeah, but it was like one share at the time was worth like $200 and something. And now, according to TD
Ameritrade.
There we go. It's only worth 120. So I'm like, oh.
I mean, that's weird because if you look on a lot of other apps, including Robinhood, it is worth $53 right now.
I've seen that as well.
$53.
Yeah.
I took the money from the GameStop shares and I've invested it into more diverse and smart things. And the thing is, that's the thing. It's not like I don't know how to invest. It's just that I got bought up into the hype and I went all in on it. And I could have walked away if I stood with my original sensibilities and sold at $400.
Yeah.
Like I was originally planning to. Instead, I bought into the hype that it was going to go even higher and then, oops. So,
I mean, plus, like, this is all a gamble. We don't really know how things are going to go.
Right.
We can only try to predict what's going to happen.
You know, right afterwards, there was a huge spike and squeeze with cannabis stuff. Cannabis stock exploded. Don't look at me like that. That is not a demonetization term. I use the scientific term.
Okay.
Okay? Calm down.
I'm still going to give you the look.
Calm down.
I'm very calm.
All right, I could have used the W word.
It's all right. I got my mute button in case anything goes wrong.
All right, relax.
Go
But in
ahead.
any case, there was a big spike in that this past week, and a lot of people walked out with that one. And then you have a lot of people who bought in and immediately just down again. But I've invested into a multitude of various things. I did invest a little bit in cannabis. I've invested back into biotechnology and health stuff like that. Specifically, Sensonics, which is a diabetic technology company, to help when it comes to diabetes patients and stuff like that. One share Disney, one share Apple, your evergreens.
Yeah, those are pretty safe bets right now.
Yeah. The only problem is, of course, that now that I've invested smartly, I can look forward to maybe a 10% gain over the course of a year, as if that's going to do anything for me.
Yeah, right.
I'm not salty.
It's not it's not the kind of risk taking that's that's going to get you rich or that's really going to mean something long term, but who knows? Maybe someday Apple, Disney, they're just going to do something that's so good that the stock is just going to
Well,
increase significantly.
with these, you are hedging your bets on two things. With Disney, you're hedging your bets on the parks reopening and increasing in capacity. Disney World is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year.
And that they won't keep closing down studios, right?
Don't even get me started. Don't even get me. We're never going to get to the subjects of today's episode if we get on that one. That's going to be. I'm going to save that one for an episode where we're a little more casual.
No problem.
A little more. Chris gets to vent.
Okay.
Kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
No. But the thing is, Disney parks are the biggest moneymaker for Disney. Straight up. Like, it's not the movies, it's not the television, it's the parks.
Yeah.
And that's why they took such a hit this past year with the stock value, because the parks ended up closing.
Yeah.
Disney World was closed for a while and is at 35% capacity. Disneyland, if I recall correctly, is still closed in California. You know, those things hurt.
Yeah.
So with Disney, you're banking on the parks reopening and that leading to a nice increase in stock value. And then with Apple, we get into today's subject.
Yes. Go ahead.
The Apple Car.
Aha.
Whoops.
I'm like, yeah, this is really interesting because if Apple does it now, Samsung is probably going to jump on that bandwagon at some point.
The big news with the Apple Car is that in this past month, we had Hyundai announce or talk about how they were going to be making the Apple Car under the Kia brand, the Kia Motors brand. Apple apparently does not like rumors and leaks coming out.
They don't. They really don't.
And, as a result, Hyundai/Kia came out later on saying, about that report with the Apple Car and, us working on it, that is not happening at this current moment in time. So they were in talks about making the Apple Car, and they were immediately booted and said the deal is off the moment they came and leaked out about it, because Apple is peeved about that. They're very much like, you made a mistake with this. And now Apple is looking towards other manufacturers to make the Apple Car. One of the newest interested partners is going to be Nissan. And, there's a bunch of other ones. Nissan is one of them. I don't think Tesla actually is one, even though it makes a little bit of sense, but at the same time, it also doesn't. But
yeah, I can see that area.
But going back to stocks, Hyundai and Kia took some pretty drastic hits when the announcement came out that they were no longer working the Apple Car. I think Hyundai took a 8% dip, and Kia took 13%, which I imagine for a lot of people who started looking at stocks when the GameStop, AMC, and cannabis stuff was going on, and they might think, that's usual. GameStop went up like 30% that one time. That is abnormal. 13% dip in one single day is huge.
Pretty massive, yeah.
It is huge.
Yeah. That's rather problematic for them. All because of those leaks getting out?
Yeah, basically. No, not because the leaks came out. Their stock actually went up when the leaks came out, because everyone was like, let's quickly invest into Kia and Hyundai because they're going to be making the Apple Car, and the Apple Car is going to be a game changer.
But Apple didn't like that.
The stock dipped because Apple got out. That's what happened. Apple said no, and Kia had to come out and say, like, we're not working on it anymore. We're on timeout. And that's when they took the huge dip.
I see.
They had a golden egg, and then they fumbled it.
Wow. That is very unfortunate. I would be in tears right now if I were Hyundai or Kia. Now,
I noticed that you really emphasized Hyundai.
I did because I'm used to saying Hyundai.
I think it's tomato.
Okay. It makes more sense Hyundai, but like, I'm gonna take your word for it because you're more of a car guy.
Hyundai, okay, but Hyundai is probably the way it's supposed to be pronounced. For example, in the in actual Korea and stuff like that. Whereas Hyundai is probably the Americanized pronunciation. So
okay, I mean, if that's the correct way to say it here,
keep that in mind. So you can go either way with it. If you want to go Hyundai, go Hyundai.
Okay. That was great. Ah. I guess we're getting dark in this episode. But so now, like, is Apple going to be working on this by themselves? Or are they going to team up with Toyota? Any news on that?
They are shopping around for other dealerships.
Okay.
There's been a couple of dealerships that have been mentioned. I don't currently have all of them listed in front of me, especially because I hurled my source of.
Yeah, your research station. But we actually have one right in front of us.
We do, in fact, have the research station right over here.
So if you would like, go for it.
Again, the most recent one to express interest was, in fact, Nissan.
Mm-hmm.
And, Nissan's been going over a whole facelift when it comes to the company. They've introduced a new logo over the past year, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they're definitely someone who's interested. BMW is also a possible interest, Mercedes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a bunch of different people who are possibly in the talks to work on the Apple car. No doubt, though, we're not going to hear about it because clearly Apple already struck someone when they were already getting ready to make it. So
yeah. So Apple in general is definitely very secretive when it comes to any kinds of projects, whether they be very soon to be announced projects or anything like that. And it goes as far as to even affect Apple employees at like the Apple Store. Like even if it's not necessarily a fact, and like if a customer asks, "Hey, when do you think the next iPhone is going to come out?" Even if you say what has become objectively true over the past since like 2008, I think when the first iPhone came out was September, right? Even if you were to say, oh, like we should expect something around September or so, that could actually get you in trouble. If you say that, even if it is like just a guess, like an innocent answer to an innocent question, that could still get you in trouble as an Apple employee.
Which is really funny because there seems to be Apple leaks almost all the time.
Yes.
Like say, for example, not too long ago, we were talking about the foldable phone.
Yeah.
The foldable iPhone. That's something that's come out.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these people can't really get in trouble because, like, they're just individuals and stuff. They don't work for Apple. They're not partnered with Apple or anything like that. Even though they do get, I'm sure, like, sources from people that are actually involved with Apple in some way. But still, like, they're very militant about these things. And, like, they really try to keep these things secret until they're ready to announce it, which is... I honestly don't know what to think of it. If it's over the top, or if it makes sense for a company to be this invested into wanting to keep leaks from actually being released to the point where they'd be willing to fire an employee.
Right, I see that.
Even just like a salesperson at an Apple store,
It's very tight. The only other company I can think of that's usually this tight when it comes to these kind of things is. Going back to stocks again, Disney.
Oh, I was going to say Nintendo.
Oh, no. Nintendo gets data mined all the time. No, Disney.
Yeah, you have a point.
I was thinking Disney because Disney is like, say for example, one of the biggest things that Disney did this past decade was purchase Lucasfilm. And they bought Star Wars and all that stuff.
Right.
And despite that deal apparently being in talks for months upon months on end, we didn't find out about it until the day that it was announced. And then they came out and said, we bought it. We're making new Star Wars, all of that stuff, which you imagine would get leaked easily. And it never did.
Wow.
They are extremely protective of things. Same thing, Avengers movies, spoilers, those could totally be leaked out. They never get leaked out. Disney does not mess around when it comes to, secrets and stuff like that.
Yeah. I can understand more so with the film, right? Like, you don't want the whole story of the film to get spoiled for you.
Right, but then it's also the same thing. Like, you'll have a sick kid or whatever, or a sick person who's like, my last wish is to watch the new Star Wars movie. And then they come and they bring the Star Wars movie to them months before it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't leak.
Or they
It doesn't leak. Because the thing is, you have the sick person, and then you have the family members around. They must have the scariest lawyers.
Wait. Let me ask this. Did that actually happen?
Multiple times.
Oh, okay. I was going to make a joke, but forget it.
No, multiple times. Multiple times, both for Star Wars and Marvel movies. Like, you'll have someone who is sick, unfortunately terminal, whatever, and, their wish is to see this thing, and then Disney will, in fact, send a copy of the film. Maybe the special effects aren't fully finished because, it's a couple months ahead of time. but like they will send the movie over, and then they'll have a little viewing party at the household or the hospital room, whatever it is.
And the parents and the doctors have to like sign a non-disclosure
Yes,
agreement.
probably yes. Yeah, it very much is. Do not spoil this movie to anyone else. I swear to like.
I mean, that makes sense. Like they're already doing something really nice for the family and the kid.
Of course, but
Yeah.
you could totally imagine someone doing that and going on 4chan and being like, "Guys, like I know what's gonna happen in this movie." It's like,
I mean, I mean, in that case, like we can just assume who's probably going to be in the news next week. We just found oft leaker for the next Avengers film. We never knew what he said.
right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so companies that are involved with the possible talks to make an Apple car at the current moment, or ones to look out for, according to Yahoo Finance, which
Okay.
I know is Yahoo, but
Yeah.
is Magna. Magna, which is the third largest auto supplier in the world by sales, and they basically
Huh.
they make parts.
I'll be
So-
frank. I've never really heard of Magna, but
Again, because they make the parts. They don't actually they're not a manufacturer in the sense of like, say for example, Ford or whatever it is. Like,
I gotcha.
they simply make the parts and then ship them out and stuff like that.
I see.
So Magna,
Kind of like a developer versus a
Yes.
publisher.
You also have Nissan, Hyundai.
Nissan.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Tomato. Hyundai/Kia, which they've kind of gotten dumped out as a result, but they've also, it's entirely possible that they pretend to get dumped out and then they're actually still working on it.
Yeah.
Stellantis, which is a European conglomerate, which was recently formed through the merger of PSA Group and Fiat Chrysler.
Ah.
So, the company that owns Chrysler, Jeep, and all that stuff could possibly be working with the Apple car. And
Wait, so all of those companies are owned by the same company? Like all of these brands are owned by the same company?
okay, so bear with me here.
Yes.
It's been years upon years of different mergers and stuff like that. So
Okay.
you have Chrysler, which Chrysler owns Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, and technically Ram, because Ram used to belong to Dodge, but then got split into its own little sub-brand of just cars and of trucks and SUVs, right?
Okay.
So that is Chrysler.
Mhm.
They then merged with the Italian company Fiat. Okay?
Okay.
And now Fiat Chrysler, which was the merger of that, then merged with PSA Group, which makes, if I recall correctly, I'm looking over here, PSA Group PSA, which makes like Citroën, Pugo, and all that stuff, then merged with Fiat Chrysler to create Stellantis, the megacorp.
Huh.
That is one big company that has their fingers in both the North American and European markets.
Huh. Interesting.
You would be surprised how many car manufacturers or whatever, or how many car brands are owned by other brands. Like, say, for example, Toyota also owns Acura. Wait, no, not Acura. Lexus.
Okay.
Lexus. Excuse me. Acura is Honda. Excuse me.
Honda?
Yes.
Not Hyundai.
No.
Okay.
No, because
I'm kind of illiterate when it
for
comes
a lot
to
because for a lot of these car companies, you'll have the standard brand, the luxury brand, and the budget brand. So, like, say, for example, for Toyota, you had Toyota was the standard brand.
Got it.
Then you had Lexus, the luxury brand, and then way back in the day, you had Scion as the budget hip millennial brand.
Okay.
With
But
the
Scion doesn't exist anymore.
No, they do not, because
Okay.
the selling was terrible because they had these boxy cars, and most millennials and young people like that, they either just bought a Toyota or they would go for something else that was more appealing, like, say, for example, Mini.
I feel like they would actually sell pretty well nowadays.
I don't think so.
I mean, a lot of hipsters would probably like
I could be
those kinds of
biased. Though.
cars.
I could be biased because
Yeah.
I hated Scions.
I understand. It doesn't sound appealing to me either, but it sounds like something a lot of New York City hipsters might actually be into.
I don't know.
Okay, like maybe. I mean, just throwing that out there.
I just don't like that boxy car design in any brand. Like, you have like the Nissan Leaf, for example, that's also pretty boxy. I don't.
Yeah.
No, I don't like those looks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not some like guy who needs the biggest sports cars or anything like that, but like,
Right.
please be aesthetically pleasing. A box is not aesthetically pleasing to me.
I mean, it's not to me either, but I did know somebody that had a toaster car, as she called it. And she absolutely loved it, for example. But then again, I'm pretty sure that's a pretty niche group of people.
It is, and maybe it's again, I'm entirely admitting my bias here. These are not the kind of cars for me that I like.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible they were doing relatively well and all that stuff. But
yeah.
nevertheless,
I mean, for me, like for instance, I very much like the look of the Chrysler 300, the older Chrysler 300s, though. Which I do see oftentimes in my neighborhood, like a Chrysler Chrysler 300 from 2004 up to 2006. Usually, those are the best looking ones in my opinion, because they do tend to resemble Bentleys. Like the poor man's Bentley, and then Bentley is like the poor man's Rolls Royce.
Which is funny too, because Chrysler isn't really a cheap brand either. It's not really. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's one thing. When it comes to Fiat Chrysler, they never really had a budget brand. I guess Fiat maybe filled that role, but Chrysler was always considered kind of not luxury necessarily, but like still higher end. Dodge was always more of the sports end, which of course means that it also costs more. And Jeep is, of course, Jeep.
Yeah.
Everyone knows Jeep, and Ram, same thing.
Yeah, of course. Jeep is instantly recognizable.
Exactly.
Like, when you see a Jeep, oh, that's a Jeep.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, of course,
there is one other company that is apparently in talks to make an Apple car, or that should be looked out for. And I deeply, deeply hope that they do not get the deal to make it.
Who is it?
And that is Foxconn.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Apple, Foxconn.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense, actually.
I dearly hope that it is not Foxconn. The amount of things that have happened at Foxconn factories make me way too uncomfortable with the prospect of them getting more capital through things like making an Apple car.
Yeah, we're not going to get into specifics when it comes to the stuff that has gone on at Foxconn, but like it's not pretty.
I do think I feel like most people will know.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody here has known of what's gone on, but it is some pretty terrible stuff.
Just to put it very bluntly, there is a reason why a lot of these Foxconn buildings have netting surrounding them.
Yeah.
And you can just use your imagination with that.
Yeah, there's enough to it. Like, watch your favorite South Park episode, and I'm sure that's going to help with your imagination.
There's also plenty of video essays on YouTube, I imagine, about Foxconn and all of the issues that they've had. It's just
all of which are very interesting, and I do recommend that you watch.
Yeah.
Because it is important to know this stuff. Now, granted, it does make perfect sense because Apple has worked with Foxconn for making their iPhone.
Exactly, and that's the thing. They're already ubiquitous in that they make the vast majority of parts for many mobile companies, including Apple.
Yeah.
So for them to end up going into the automotive industry and then possibly get more capital there, and have maybe other manufacturers then shift over to them because maybe they're cheaper.
Yeah.
That just seems like a terrible, terrible recipe. I don't want Foxconn. I would rather it be. Honestly, I would have liked to see Kia be the one working with that stuff because Kia cars are relatively nice. Kia is also a budget option.
Okay. I think they should work with more of a luxury brand, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that would just suit Apple better.
Are you just saying that because the Apple car will naturally be really expensive?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Give it to Mercedes. Just give it to Mercedes.
I don't know. Yeah. You see, like, in a way, I would have thought Tesla, Apple. But I can also see maybe why they wouldn't work together.
That's the thing. I mentioned them earlier, and I realized how dumb I was by saying that because more than likely they're going to be competitors.
Exactly. Because like these are two pretty, like they would be luxury brands in this case.
They have the same goals in mind: self-driving cars, fully autonomous, electric.
Right. And like this is a very strong generalization, but Tesla owners tend to have an iPhone. Now I do wonder. Like if Tesla, like in spite, is just going to make the Tesla phone,
right? To
try and like compete with Apple.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, but I would love to see that too.
I mean, if it overheats and then shuts down the display again or something, the runs out of space. It's
oh no! But better have a pretty massive hard drive in there. But
exactly now, and of course now we're rolling back into regular tech outside of automotives, and we can always discuss the Apple car and things like that. Are going on as we learn more.
It does kind of feel like maybe we should leave the streaming stuff for another time.
No, I don't think so. We have
you don't think so?
Yeah, I think
you think we should touch on it?
Okay. I do not want to go 3 straight episodes where we do not cover every single thing we said we were going to.
Okay.
So
All
let's
right.
do this.
Okay.
Francisco, take us away.
Sure thing. So next up is going to be drum roll.
We don't have a drum roll.
No, I don't think we do. We really have to work on the soundboard since
really
we
do.
are on season 2 technically. Episode 1 of season 2, but we are still going to continue with episode 27, 28, 29, 30, etc. Right.
That's right. We do have the new theme song earlier.
Yes, which you must have heard. Let us know your thoughts in the comments if you're on YouTube.
Of course, we have
And
to give special thanks to the person who made it.
of course, the person on Fiverr. You're great.
You're not going to name drop him? You don't have an Instagram handle or something?
I don't remember his name. Plus, he said it was copyright free, so like it's fine.
Come on, give credit. It was in the description or something.
Fine.
All
I'll look for something there.
Okay, but drum roll.
Yeah. The best streaming gear for you, depending on your budget. What do you need if you want to get into live streaming? Let's find out in the next few seconds of the Tech Summit Podcast, episode 27. All right, so thing number 1 is going to be audio. Audio is going to be important, but not quite as important as you might think, because if you're streaming, you don't need an expensive microphone by any means. Because what's going to happen is that because of Twitch compression, the audio quality is going to be brought down no matter what. So you can get a very fancy microphone, and you will still get like the general sound across, but like the overall quality, like what that microphone is able to achieve, nobody is going to be able to hear
I
it.
do think you want to get something at the very least that can handle your plosives.
Yes,
At the very least.
a pop filter is going to be very, very important for the vast majority of microphones, especially if you're going to have the microphone like super up close, like this, for instance, how we have our Rode pod mics relatively close to us. This is in part because this is a dynamic microphone, which I am going to talk about briefly as well. But even then, like still, this does have a built-in pop filter, and it's still not enough to protect it entirely from plosives. An exterior pop filter would actually get that job done quite well, and they do have ones that are pretty stylish. This is a windscreen. It does help with plosives. This right here, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, this is a windscreen. It can help with plosives, but it's not really a pop filter. It's mostly there to help, but a pop filter, it's really what's going to help with those pops and those P's and those B's. Well, not so much the B's, but like the P's and things of the like.
Surely we can also recommend, though, that, depending on if your budget can allow it, a Movo mic, surely.
Yes, actually. So recently, I tested out, well, not that recently. I tested out the Movo VSM7, which is a fantastic XLR condenser microphone.
Which I also bought.
Yes. And how do you feel about it?
Oh, I think it's an excellent piece of hardware. People always, like, when I join Discord calls just casually, people always be like, wow, why is your voice so clear? What's going on? Because they think I'm going to be calling through a phone, and then all of a sudden, here I am on the mic. Which, by the way, of course, the Movo came with a pop filter built right in.
And the shock mount.
And a shock mount. All you need to do is get the stand, which you can pick up a stand at, like, your local electronics store or Amazon for like maybe $10, $13.
Exactly.
You don't really need a whole lot there.
Yeah, it's super cheap. Now, for that microphone in particular, I am going to recommend that you get yourself an arm instead of like an actual stand like this, because these stands do tend to be a little bit tall.
Well, it's not our fault that you're vertically challenged.
Exactly. So I think that is worth noting. However, if you too are vertically challenged, an arm will solve that issue for you. And even if you aren't, you could still raise it up. So there is that. I think that that's just the alternative that's going to universally work.
Of course, though, the arm should only really be used if your desk is sturdy enough to handle it.
Which most desks are.
Most desks are,
Yeah.
but if you're really, really on a budget, the last thing you want is for like the desk to start, or like just the clamp to just right inside. And
yes, you do want to make sure that your desk can handle it, but for the most part, you really should be fine. I mean, like these arms tend to have padding and stuff, and also so that you don't end up like scratching your desk along the way. So that's super important. And now, this whole time, I've been talking about an XLR microphone, which is generally the way that I would recommend that you go, but you don't always need to go in that direction. I think that a USB microphone can still be a great alternative.
And a USB mic is definitely the way to go if you're also working on a budget, because a lot of these XLR mics will require an audio interface.
They all will.
They will require
Not a lot of them, they all will.
You get my point. Like they will require an audio interface, which in itself can be an additional cost. Like say, for example, I have a PreSonus.
Mm-hmm.
I almost said Audio Technica. A PreSonus, I think audio box.
Okay.
Which is a USB interface, which can take the XLR and then plug it
Right.
into the computer via USB.
It's
cord.
an analog to digital converter. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is one of the cheaper options, and even still, that costs about $100.
Yeah, right. And that's pretty standard, and it is actually a pretty good way to go about it.
Now, of
you can think of
course-
it this way too, because you can invest in just like a $100 quality audio interface, such as the Focusrite, the Scarlett Focusrite 2i2, which I actually have over there. And that one only costs between 100 and 150, and you have pretty much infinite possibilities when it comes to upgrades in the future.
Mhm.
And that's ultimately the advantage of going with an XLR microphone. When it comes to USB microphones, they aren't very upgradable.
Of course, also, there's something worth noting. If you are planning to stream music, like if you are a musician who is trying to stream that stuff, then things like an XLR mic and an audio interface are a must to begin with anyway, because that's how you're going to be plugging in a lot of your equipment anyway. So
You mean like if you're going to be performing live?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, because remember, of course, a lot of people do try to stream video games, but there's a lot of people who also might be trying to stream music stuff,
Right.
like live music,
Yeah.
and other things like that. So of course, all of this depends on what you plan to use. Like, what are you planning to stream? If you are in fact planning to stream live music, then things like an XLR mic and an audio interface are a must.
Yeah.
You can't.
I can
really-
definitely agree with
At
that.
that point, you will have to spend a little bit more, unfortunately, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an unfortunate fact of life in that instance.
Yeah.
USB mics are good if you're just streaming video games or casually or just chatting, whatever.
I mean, even then, yes, I definitely do agree with that. Not every microphone is going to be created equal. You're going to have some microphones that will suit your voice better than others. So it is worth looking around and exploring. Honestly, I mean, I was going to suggest, just go to like a B&H store. But, there's only one in New York. So.
Not everyone lives in the New York area.
Yeah,
yes.
exactly. A lot of people do.
You can have
but
a
not
lot of people in
everyone.
Idaho who are like, what's a B&H?
And frickin' Ohio. Well, to those who live in Ohio and Idaho, we have solutions for you. Actually, no, we don't. Amazon, sure.
Local electronics store.
Yeah, though honestly, I have had a lot of wonderful experiences with microphone kits from companies like Mono, Fifine, InnoGear, and companies like that.
Right.
That do make very great sounding USB microphones that already come with an arm, already come with a pop filter, already come with a shock bounce. Like it is the full package, and they tend to cost between $50 to $60, sometimes even $70. But they tend to sound really, really, really good for the money. So if you are going to get a USB microphone, that's probably the first thing I would want to recommend, one of those kits. I might be leaving some linked down in the description, of course. Now, these are going to be affiliate links. That is an important disclosure.
Of course.
But if you wanted to look at more so like a very popular first-party microphone, then, you're probably going to be looking at a Blue Yeti, or you're going to be looking at the HyperX Quadcast. You might be looking at the Elgato Wave series, like the Wave 1 or the Wave 3, and microphones like that. The Blue Yeti has a very great advantage that it does have a built-in EQ to the Blue Sherpa, which is the software that Blue uses for you to be able to customize your microphone. Like you can add a noise gate, a de-esser, you can add a high-pass filter, you can mess around with the highs, the lows, and the mids, and things like that. They give you a bunch of presets. Not a lot of companies do that. I don't even think that Elgato has implemented that onto their Wave microphones yet. But there's also a very big advantage where you have so much control over what you get to do with your Elgato Wave microphone, especially if you get the Wave 3, because the Wave 3 has one knob to control different aspects of your microphone. Like you can control music volume and things like that if you really wanted to, which is very impressive. It is like having a Go XLR, which is the audio interface that I use for streaming, not the one that I use for or that we use here for podcasting, which would be the Rode Rodecaster Pro. But something like that would be very useful. It does very much depend on your needs. Do you have any thoughts?
Not really. Because the thing is, I have not really been streaming that much myself. So like for me, I have a very simplified setup. I have the Movo mic, and then I just have my computer.
I understand.
And then I have the tools that I might be using at any given moment. Like say, for example, a drawing tablet, a controller, whatever it may be.
Right. All of these are going to be on an as-needed basis.
Of course.
A microphone is going to be universally needed.
Yes.
And now the next thing I actually wanted to touch on was going to be a camera. So not everybody likes to use a camera, right? Such as Christopher over here. However, I do recommend that you try to get used to being in front of the camera, unless your persona just works better off camera per se, which is a possibility. Again, it does depend on what kind of streamer you want to be, or maybe you're just not ready to show your face on camera, which is also understandable. You know, like it does take time for a lot of people to want to show yourselves on camera. I do recommend that you still try to work your way to that point eventually, because people are very much attracted to a personality, and maybe a lot of your personality is just in your voice, and that's perfectly fine. And I know with you, you tend to exude a lot of personality.
I do.
Yeah, like when you talk.
Oh.
Yeah, like you may have not noticed it, but you are a pretty unique individual. So, like watching you without a webcam would work just fine.
But for people who are already interested and want to use a webcam for their streams, what do you recommend?
So I generally would recommend to stay away from webcams and just to go straight for an actual camera for streaming, but that's not an affordable way of going about it.
Absolutely not.
So instead, what I would recommend is for you to go with a regular webcam and just make sure that you do have proper lighting for yourself. You would need proper lighting anyway if you were to go with something like, let's say, a Sony RX100 or a Sony A5100, which are two very popular cameras for streaming.
And of course, for lighting, there's a lot of budget options. We
Yes.
actually have a couple of budget options right over here. Pardon me one moment.
Yeah, we actually have a garden lights over here to light the podcast, but you can even just use like a $15, $20 ring light, or even like a softbox of anything, and that's going to work wonders for you. You really only need one light.
We have, garden lights. You know, these are used for like plants, for like, making sure plants are well done in a garden indoor or something like that.
Yeah.
This was like $10, $15, and then you just, get a bulb. Sometimes the bulbs are included. Sometimes you have to buy the bulb separately. But you can use this as just a backlight solution, which we've been doing a little bit over here. This is an extremely cheap option.
Yes.
The big thing you want to focus on, this is my film knowledge coming out now. The big thing you want to focus on is the 3-point lighting system. You have a key light, which lights the primary part of your face. A fill light, which is a little less intense, maybe a little farther away, not as bright, maybe has a little gel or some sort of diffuse thing over to sort of reduce the thing.
Yeah.
That is to fill in the major shadows here on the other side of the face. And then a backlight that just sort of separates you from the background.
Yes, and they could be a backlight that points towards you, maybe like your behind, like your back or the back of your head, or it could just be lighting up the background behind you.
The idea is to have some sort of halo effect where it separates you from the background.
Yeah.
Over here to the side, we have a backlight. Besides these, we also have another backlight here that is red. That's why we have sort of a more red background.
Yeah.
As you can see here. So 3-point lighting, very important. Key, fill, back. That kind of stuff separates you from the background, makes sure that you're well lit, even if the room that you are in doesn't really do that whole much. Because especially the lower quality webcam that you're using, the cheaper webcam that you got, the lower quality is going to be.
Yes.
The lower quality is going to be, the worse it is going to be for lighting on you if you are not lit correctly.
Exactly.
You'll just sort of phase into the background, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, and this is going to be an overgeneralization, but lighting is going to compensate for a lot of shortcomings that your cheap webcam might have, because if you yourself are well lit, then it is a lot less work that the camera has to do to try and compensate for actually trying to show your face and things like that. So like it'll just make it so that the image is a lot less grainy.
And yeah, I would say grain is a huge issue when you have very low lighting for a lot of things.
You're right, yeah. Though, while the 3-point lighting system is recommended if you can, it's not something that's necessary, especially if you're starting. Like just one light that's lighting you up is enough, but you should be the focus. So that is definitely recommended, even if you are working with an affordable webcam.
Like I said, one of these, $10-15, has a little clamp. You can clamp it onto something that sort of just points towards you.
Exactly. So that's going to be a great solution. And if you are on a budget for a microphone, I've already made a couple of recommendations that's going to be down in the description too. Now, if you're somebody that's looking for capture cards, then
not right now. Don't.
Right. I think that is going to be a much broader conversation. And in fact, if you are looking for, let's say, more professional cameras and things like that, that is also going to be another broad conversation. So probably going to leave that for another segment where we can dedicate a lot more time to this.
We will note that capture cards are currently being shorted.
Yeah.
Not shorted, but you know what I mean? Like, there's a very short stock on capture cards because of the usual suspects.
Yes.
So if you are trying to stream specifically for, like, say, for example, the Nintendo Switch, there might be a little bit of delay for that at the current moment at the very least.
Right, yeah. So what we can do in the future is just give recommendations for what to get in the future, probably.
Yes. There will be a part 2 to this subject.
Yes, of course. But with that said, thank you very much for watching/listening to tonight's episode of the Tech Summit podcast.
That is right. If you guys are watching/listening here on YouTube, all of that social media information for Francisco from Tech Summit will in fact be at the bottom over here.
Yes, indeed. And with that said,
if you are
listening on other platforms, yes, I've been forgetting every single episode, but if you are listening on any of the podcasting platforms, then do make sure to take a look at the respective descriptions, as all of our links should be there. And now, with that finally said,
yes,
this has been Francisco
and Chris,
and we will be seeing you all on the next episode.
Good night. Travel well.